Cody's called CinemaCast. Everyone's favorite Canadian cinema podcast that no one listens to. That is in chaos mode.
We're not in chaos mode. We've got it.
Yeah, we got a plan.
Under control. Yeah, it's under control.
Sort of. Yeah.
Maybe.
First of 2 recordings today. We're gonna record the next episode, which is normally I'd roll it, but I rolled it off screen. It's I'll give you the dice roll. Give them what they want. There. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna be reviewing Tora later. So yeah, today's film is the 1981 film Mommie Dearest, based on the book of the same name by Christina Crawford, who is Joan Crawford's adopted daughter. She is the first of 5 children adopted by Joan Crawford. Only 2 are in the movie. One of them doesn't really... it counts, but he was reclaimed by the mother after like a year or something.
Mm-hmm. So 1 of 4.
Yeah, technically 1 of 4. And then, yeah, we only see 2 in the movie. We see Christina and Christopher Crawford. There is a pair of twins who are adopted in 47, who are Carolyn and I forget their names. C names also. All the siblings have the same initials. But they are twins who are adopted very much later than Christina. So yeah, Christina Crawford wrote the book 2 years after, or finished the book 2 years after Joan Crawford's death, and then this movie was made 3 years later or something like that. I think the book was published in 79. So this is also the final part of our Razzie films that aren't actually that bad. Pentology? Is a pentagram 5-sided?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Pentagram.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, that's not what a pentagram is.
Oh?
Pentology. Our Razzie films that aren't actually that bad pentology, which is finally ending with perhaps the best film of the lot?
I guess it depends how you look at it. It's definitely the darkest film of the lot. We've done a lot of inadvertently abusive parents. This one is the first one where we've seen kind of the darker side of everything rather than kind of the lighter side.
Yeah, this is our first purposely abusive parent. I didn't think about that, actually. Yeah, our unintended sub-theme of the season, which is Parenthood. Yeah, this one was for the 1981 Razzies. It won Worst Screenplay. It won Worst Supporting Actor for Steve Forrest. Yeah, it won Worst Actress, both Worst Actresses, Worst Picture, and won Worst Picture, Worst Screenplay, Worst Actor, and both the Worst Actresses.
Which to me, I really dislike it when the Razzie Awards goes after children, and this one, I do believe the girl who played Christina was actually...
yeah, the young one. Yeah, there's 2 actors that plays Christina. One for the first half of the movie where she's a little girl, and then one for the later half of the movie where she's older. I guess there's 3 actresses because there's a baby, and the baby counts. So yeah, she's the second of 3 actors that play Christina Crawford.
And I mean, the kid wasn't exactly at fault here. I think she did a pretty decent...
I've done... been poring over the Wikipedia, the articles about this, and people are savage toward this movie. Absolutely savage. I'll bring up the Wikipedia article just to read it out here. Yeah, there's some things about this being an unintentional comedy. What the fuck? How is this funny? Seriously.
Yeah,
they make it everyone's oh, this is supposed to be funny. It's ha, Fey Dunaway's in makeup and she's screaming at this child, spanking her with a wire hanger, which she must have bought for her somehow, because how else would it be in the fucking store? And then done like tons of child abuse, and it's, oh yeah, this is funny, this is hilarious, don't you know? It's like, I don't get
Well,
it.
I think
And
they're
like they,
more pointing. Sorry, I think they're just more pointing to the over the top acting on Dunaway's part more than the situational.
yeah, she could stand to be reined in.
I was talking to a couple of friends of ours the other night. We were talking about what we're doing on the podcast this week, and I said we're doing "Mommie Dearest." It's a movie about systematic child abuse, and then I was like, after the fact, it gained a cult following of an unintentional comedy about situational child or systematic child abuse. And he just kind of looked at me like, what? And at that point in time, I hadn't actually fully watched the movie, but like, I stayed out at one of the farms last night, and like the room I was staying in wasn't too far off from the other room, and this child's just like screaming out bloody murder, like crying for help to her mother, like just apologizing frequently. And I'm like, wow, sounds really horrible if you listen to it without any other context to it. Like it's really bad. So I was like, I'm just gonna turn the volume down as I'm watching this at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Like,
Yeah, like who laughs at this? What the fuck's wrong with you, 1980s, that you thought this was funny? Don't get me wrong, Fey Dunaway could be. She plays Joan Crawford in this. She could be reined in a bit, but it's not like funny. I don't know. It's, do they not take women seriously as like threatening figures, or I don't know. I don't
mhm.
know what to think of these people. I was inspired by to do this kind of. There's Brad Jones, the cinema snob, did an episode on this, and he pointed out that this should actually have won Best Actress, which I don't know, but I did, out of curiosity, watch the film that won Best Actress that year, which is Coal Miner's Daughter. Some people may have saw a bit of what my comments about that on Twitter, but that wasn't too much regard to her acting. I think it's also about on par there. I think maybe it is a little better in Coal Miner's Daughter. It's more reserved because, yeah, but I do. I think this movie's a bit better, mostly because this movie seems to have a message, whereas Coal Miner's Daughter is just like 50 minutes of some pedophile hitting on Tina, whatever her name is, and then I don't know. That's not an easy movie to watch either.
Well, Robert Ebert, who we've constantly, or Roger Ebert, who we've constantly brought up on this podcast, has went on to say, with a 1-star review, I can't imagine who would want to subject themselves to this movie, calling it unremittingly depressing, not to any purpose of drama or entertainment, but just to depress. It left me feeling creepy.
I mean, there are more depressing movies than this. Like it's not a Holocaust movie. But I mean, it's not something you watch for fun. I don't,
No.
which I never get this when just like, oh, it's depressing, which is like, yeah, it could be depressing, but that doesn't make the movie bad necessarily. It just means that's what the mood of the movie is. It's a weird thing to like bring up as a complaint.
2.5 stars, 4 stars. 49% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a $5 million budget that grossed $39 million at the box office.
So pretty successful.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Loretta Lynn is the country singer from Coal Miner's Daughter. Just for the record. Yeah, that was a film that got a ton of Oscar nominations. Didn't care for it. I don't know. It's a movie where a grown man marries a 14-year-old or like hits on like a 13-year-old a lot. And it doesn't, I don't know. I don't know. They keep him around for the whole movie. He's really creepy. That's way harder to watch. And it's not making a statement on any of it, which is the
Mhm.
issue. Like it doesn't vilify Doolittle-Lynn. I mean, we're not talking about it, but this movie at least it vilifies Joan Crawford, which is at least something. It's not just here we're just pointing it out. This is what happened, and not making a point. Anyway, back to Mommie Dearest. Yeah, they are hard to this fucking movie. It's fucking bizarre. So yeah, Fey Dunaway, Mara Hobble plays young Christina Crawford. Diana Scarwid plays old Christina Crawford.
And yeah, as I was saying earlier, I'd like to take it back. They did not nominate Hobble for the Razzie Award. They nominated Diana Scarwood, who is the adult Christina Crawford, and that's a little better. And I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, she does do a bit of a like an impression of Fey Dunaway's character in this, and that can kind of run people a long way. Even like positive reviews I've seen of like criticize the performance because it's really comes off as imitating that really like over the top old style acting, which Joan Crawford has. I did look up some clips of Joan Crawford. It did she's not as especially in her normal moments where she's not on film, which is what I was trying to get is it's more restrained, which isn't as much. Couple more things. This movie does completely leave out the later twin daughters that were adopted. Joan Crawford's third husband, who she was married to for 4 years while Christina would have been a child, and while the first brother the brother Christopher Crawford was adopted. He's not in the movie. I think there's a character Greg who's a fictional character who kind of fills out that role. I don't know why that is. I haven't found any statements from that from that husband. Philip Terry is his name. He's an actor. I haven't found any statements from him, which is weird. I found a statement from Joan Crawford's first husband, who's from the 30s, who's not mentioned in this movie at all, but we'll bring that up because it's going to be an elephant in the room. Several of Joan Crawford's cohorts have like vehemently denied the contents of this being real, including her first husband. One of who was it? Another actress who was a contemporary of Joan Crawford also vehemently denies it. Hold on, I gotta find this now because I'm gonna make a point about it. Betty Davis. Betty
Okay.
Davis is who I'm thinking of. She says it's nonsense, and then though Betty Davis also has a daughter who's written a book about her, so there's no movie on that. But I mean, I'm not trying to think it's there is some weird stuff about this that doesn't make much sense, but yeah, Philip Terry's not in the movie.
That's pretty ironic.
Yeah. And the twins have vehemently denied this too, but they were also adopted way later. They would have been 2 years old at the points where they switch actresses in the movie, and where actually they were 2 years old when maybe 2 or 3 when Christina goes to boarding school later in the film. So they would have missed a lot of the harsher stuff that would have happened early in the childhood, or at least the outright stuff. There's one fit of violence in the movie where she's older, but that would have happened, I think, during the day. It's entirely possible those girls would have been at school and would have missed this. I guess we'll get into it. I've just wanted to bring up that people have denied that any of this is true, which is, to be fair, I got to bring it up. So,
Sorry, just what I was reading here. By coincidence, Joan once said in an interview in the early 1970s that of the current young actresses, only Fey Dunaway had what it takes to be a true star, which is pretty ironic when she goes on to like to act as you in a movie, right?
yeah, yeah, they fucking took her. They took Joan Crawford's advice as who they'd like to play her, and it's really. And yeah, there's a little bit more There is one more thing, which is more or less bullshit. It's justifiable, but this movie's kind of bullshitting on this one point, which I'll get to toward the end of the movie because it's way at the end. It makes it out in a certain way, but yeah, no, I'll bring it up later. So the movie opens with an alarm clock. We see Fey Dunaway in bandages. She's going through a very extravagant morning ritual to get ready to go to film. It's a 40s beauty regiment using hot water and cold water and ice. This is presumably part of her morning routine to make herself look beautiful. This is like a midpoint in her career. We cut to a scene where she's studying a script and signing autographs on her way to morning shoot. We got back to the house after a little bit of moving around. We get a scene early on where she bitches out the staff for being lazy about the cleaning. She does explain herself to the staff, I guess. She is kind of really harsh with them.
Let's stop and talk about that for a minute, because a lot of the things you gotta like to understand about this movie is like reasonable expectations and unreasonable expectations. This is a kind of a minor detail that people might tend to overlook, but the thing is they pulled out. I do believe it was a tree, and it had a ring of dirt around the bottom of the base, and she reams these like whatchamacallit, the maids out for like, I don't know, yeah, good 40, 50, maybe a minute of airtime, and it's just like, was that reasonable? Because like a lot of things she does is just so over the top and so unreasonable that like it borderlines on OCD level of like attention to detail.
True. And this really does have almost a bit of a fair this film does have its own way of being fair to Joan Crawford. It shows like things along the spectrum. It shows little things, which is stuff like this, where it's like, okay, there's a point to be made here. She wants them cleaning under her thing, and they are her employees. And then you get sections where she's completely unreasonable. So you get a bit of both. And
Mm-hmm.
you see when you get that whole picture that those are aspects of a greater personality, and that she sometimes takes it on to places where she's not supposed to. And that's really what her weakness is to a certain degree, is her not being able to turn that off with her children, because this is very much how she acts like with them. And she's not able to turn it off with her children when we get later into the thing. She meets up with a lawyer character named Greg. Again, I've mentioned her earlier. He's a fictional character. He's sort of filling in for her third husband, Philip, who was married to. We've talked about him. She mentions to him that she wants a baby, and yes, she kind of wanted to emulate from Betty Davis, who had children, and that's a thing she had, but she didn't. Joan didn't. She is unable to have children. Actually, it's not cut and dry that she's not able to have children. It's that she so far has had only miscarriages with her second husband, Frutois. It's a French name. They only mentioned the one husband before this, but she did have two.
Francois tone. Franchot tone?
Yeah, Francois Tone. Francois. It's Francois. I think is how they pronounce it. It's difficult. They only mentioned him a couple times, but he has him and Joan had tried to have children, and there were several miscarriages. So at this point, she's come to the honestly reasonable conclusion that she's just going to adopt. And so she approaches the California foster care system, is rejected because she has had two divorces before now, and that she does have some personality things. And honestly, if anything, if some of the incidents in the movie are true, they would have probably gotten Christina or Christopher taken out of the home, because that is not unreasonable. So if Christina's telling of the story is accurate, she is unfit, and Joan points out that she is a rich woman who can potentially give orphan children a very good life, pay for high-end education, and live carefree with few issues. It's more that her personality thinks. And to be and to Joan's credit, the idea that she's getting rejected because she has divorces could also be 1940s prejudice. Having multiple divorces means several different things to several different people. And the 1940s, let's be face it, is a bad time with a lot of fascist beliefs in the time. And she is also a single woman, so that's always might be a issue. And she was single in real life when she adopted Christina, who at this point would end up being named Joan Crawford Jr. Christopher was also originally named Philip Terry Jr., but those names were changed after their divorce. Christina would have been 6-ish when the name changed, but Christopher would have been maybe 4-ish. So yeah, that's really weird, and that was a very drastic procedure. But yeah, so they can't get an adoption going through to California, so Greg ends up going through Arizona's foster care system and getting a child through them. I can't speak to the rest of the options, but yeah, so they adopt Christina from a adoption center in Arizona in 1939 or 1940.
I don't think that's actually true.
Which one?
I'm pretty
Or Nevada.
I'm pretty sure what's his face just finds somebody who's willing to sell her a child.
I mean, that's possible in the States, but in real life, I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe it's something that the movie overlooks, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I've maybe overlooked that. Greg doesn't say that, but in real life, she's adopted out of the Nevada foster care system. I said Arizona. I get those mixed up. You have too many states, United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, mix a couple of them up. Why do you have 2 Virginias?
South and North
Anyway.
Dakota. That should just be Dakota, right?
Yeah, just one. It's just the federal government in weakening the states so they can have greater power over them. That's all this is. You need to fight for your rights, people. So yeah, we get our first image of baby Christina Crawford, and then we cut to Christina's 5th birthday party, where where she's also adopted the newborn Chris.
With that being said, there's a lot of time jumps in this movie, so just get prepared for that. And with that being said, if there's a lot of time jumps and what we see is kind of like the highlights, like the worst of the worst, like I wonder what it was like on like a day-to-day basis with Joan Crawford as your mother.
Some timestamps would be helpful here. To be fair, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Maybe that would bring more attention to the fact that they're not completely redoing the makeup every scene. But yeah, I think there is something to be said for the confusion, because I was keeping track of like the Wikipedia while I was watching this, and like keeping track of like when things happened. So there is a bunch of them that you don't necessarily see, and it's difficult to say.
I was just gonna say, this is kind of like the complete opposite of our next movie, Tora. It seems like there's something written on the bottom of the screen almost every single 2 scenes or 1 scenes or whatever. So that's kind of not great, but I mean.
But yeah, anyway, we're at Christina's 5th birthday party. She's taking photographs. And this scene just reminds me of why I fucking hate photographers. They are the worst. And
Mhm.
I understand why this entire situation would make everyone involved irritable. Just photographers drove them mad. That's the entire explanation for this. I rue the day that it'll need to get headshots made or something. I'm just going to be the worst patient you could ever have. I give doctors less stress.
There's a lot to be said about people who are taking pictures of like children celebrities in Hollywood. Anyways, like people are should be allowed a certain amount of privacy. But with that being said, Joan Crawford seems to be like in love with the camera, so I don't see why she wouldn't just invite like.
Actually got the impression she was a little bit annoyed with them at times because the publicist. This is clearly a thing her publicist wants. The excess photographers. She seems to be having her most fun early on when she's like riding a merry-go-round with her kid, rather than when she's taking the 50th fucking picture of them blowing out the birthday candles. This has been made very artificial by the studio, and the film is actually fairly. This is another example of like the film being somewhat fair to Joan Crawford. It does
Mhm.
still portray her as very abusive, but it does show the odd scene from her point of view and shows some sympathetic scenes and like shows some of the bullshit she had to deal with, which is I think is great. It's better than like completely vilifying something. And like you don't need to vilify something every scene of every movie. You can have it helps to sometimes show them, here's the point. It's not always you don't need to justify it, but it's always just having the occasional scene where just like, okay, I get where they're coming from. It's never going to be quite to the point. Um, Joan Crawford has a philosophy of wanting to make sure that she is not spoiling her children. So she asks Christina which one of the toys is her favorite. She points out a one baby doll and is told that okay, that's the one she gets to keep, and the rest will be given to poor girls and boys, which is annoying for a kid. But at the same time, you get Joan Crawford's logic in this, so yeah. And then Greg also gives Christina a bracelet, which Joan begrudgingly lets her keep, which is I don't know, showing the other side of it a little bit, that she does occasionally relent, but I mean, she is still this is her fifth birthday party. This might be her first major birthday party.
Mhm.
4-year-olds don't really always have them. This might be she actually knows people from school now, probably. So yeah, it's very probable this is the first time this has happened. So Greg probably just didn't know when he bought the bracelet.
And with that being said, not Greg Savitt, but the person who plays him, Steve Forrest. I don't know who you are, but man, your voice sounds so, I don't know, rugged. Like he should have just went into like radio. Like he does a really good like
I mean, yeah, he's got a decent voice. She's Joan is pulling him aside to push him to try to get her apart. It's implied this is for Mildred Pierce, which is the script that won Joan Crawford an Oscar. Joan Crawford has one Oscar and I think 2 or 3 nominations throughout her career. It's pointed out that in this part of her career, she's very much like a bit of a late stage Morgan Freeman, where they're just putting them into anything and assuming it'll make the movie more palatable to the general audience, despite the fact that the movies are actually shit and that no actor, no matter how soothing their voice is going to be able to make things good. And you can't just throw Morgan Freeman into anything, making the film good.
by the sounds of things, you got something against Morgan Freeman.
No, I don't have anything against Morgan Freeman. I'm saying he doesn't make movies magically good.
He makes documentaries magically good.
Yeah, that's a documentary. That's gonna. I'm
Yeah,
saying
exactly.
movies like scripted fictional films. Uh, he doesn't magically make scripted fictional narratives good. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, documentaries are obviously a different thing. She's had we cut to a scene where she's by a pool. She's being very competitive with Christina, who's practicing diving in the pool. And after Greg leaves, she tries racing young Christina, which could perhaps be fun,
Mm-hmm.
but she takes it incredibly too seriously because she is an adult and Christina is maybe a 6 or 7 year old child at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And she is insisting that she try to beat her with a long head start. She's very competitive with her, and Christina complains that she needs to stop, and because she's tired. She's also this is after she's been practicing for a long time, and it eventually escalates, and Joan tells Christina to go to her room, and Christina refuses, so Joan tosses her in the pool shed.
Okay, so just a few notes on this. I think you're first of all downplaying this scene a lot. Joan Crawford gets right in this kid's face, and she's like, "I'll always be better you because I'm an adult." And I'm like, man, imagine you being like 90 or 80 and like this kid challenging you to a race and being like, "Hey, motherfucker, remember that one time when I was like 5 and you kept on goading me into racing you and then humiliating me when I lost to you at like." I guess she probably would have been in her like mid to late 40s, but like she is still very clearly in like a prime of some sort.
She had been acting for 15 years at this point. Why am I not finding her birth date? God damn it. Joan Crawford Wikipedia. I'm clicking onto the whole thing because apparently it won't show me what the fucking day is. She was born 1900 something. They don't know her exact birth date. But yeah, she's 40 at this point. 40 something. Yeah, she's mid to late 40s at this point. So yeah, she is like incredibly abusively and competitive with a small child. And yeah, it escalates to her tossing her in the pool shed. And this is our first scene where she's unambiguously abusive toward this child. The brief scenes a bit before this are a bit more perhaps reasonable things that you might find. But this is the first scene where we see outright full-on abuse.
And once again, another thing that I'd like to point out, she just had a fight with Greg over this bracelet or something. Like they fought over something, and then she like was like, "Well, here's my stress ball. Time to take it out on this small child." Like the kid was doing absolutely nothing for like to even really warrant this type of abuse, except for the small like talk back at the end. But like that was provoked after like
I think there maybe is some real time between those scenes, but yeah, it's right after each other in the film.
mhm.
The next scene we get, Joan is around and she gets a phone call from Greg telling her that she's gotten the part that she wanted. She goes excitedly to go tell Christina, and finds Christina in front of Mommie's makeup cabinet, brushing her hair, saying, pretending to be Mommy, doing some make believe. Joan takes outrageous amounts of offense to this. She flips out because she's been brushing her hair. It's kind of like ruined her hairdo, and Joan cuts off a bunch of her hair to a short point while Christina is crying her ass off because she's gonna have to go to school like this and whatnot, and she is just awful scene, like really hard to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a comedy. It's fuck off. This is a comedy. It's no, it is hard to watch. Like the acting may be a bit over the top, but that does not change the fact that this is very difficult to.
And this is another scene where the non-linear storytelling is definitely kind of having its toll on the overall film, is because last time we were checked, that kid was locked in a pool house, and then all of a sudden, it's like a whole different day. So I'm assuming she got out of the pool house at some point. Um,
Yeah, we never see Joan let her out, which
yeah.
is a thing. The scene we get in between her getting the part and between the fight is Joan going for a run early in the morning. So we don't know how long she was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that eats away at you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh Joan goes to look for Christine in her room, but that doesn't mean something. That just means she left eventually. We don't know how that argument resolved itself.
This is why it confused me so much, is because it showed the next day that Joan was going for a run, and then she went to go find Christina, and it showed that Christina wasn't in her room, and I was like, dude, you forgot her in the fucking pool house? Like, what? How long has she been in there for? Like, and then it shows that she's in another bedroom, and I'm like, oh, at least she has some fucking decency at this point.
Or at least one of the maids let her out. But yeah, that thought crosses your mind, just like, is she still in there and did Joan forget about her? Because like you don't know what's off the table at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The next scene is her going out to celebrate with Greg, and they're roped in, and Greg's inside the restaurant meeting with this other Hollywood exec who's very disrespectful toward Joan when she meets up with him and they have dinner with him, and he just talks down to her like she's some cheap actress. And let me remind you how Hollywood treats its cheap actresses. This is that is saying something. Like all her success and all her reputation as being like this main first lady of Hollywood is like brushed aside because she's still just a woman, which is something uh, I kind of like about this movie is when it like portrays like how much dicks everyone in Hollywood is, and it's very interesting to look into in the post or in the what is it really the post Me Too era? But in the Me Too era of Hollywood, where the guys are getting called out on this, and this is I don't have it. If I were a conspiracy theorist type, I would say that the Academy doesn't like this movie because it is not kind to Hollywood. Like Hollywood will love a Hollywood based movie, but this is not sympathetic to Hollywood. It's not sympathetic to Joan Crawford either, who is also who also would have been a lifetime member of the Academy, being an Oscar winner. But it is not sympathetic to the view of Hollywood. There are several scenes where Joan Crawford gets called into conversations with a man, and she has to like gets totally talked down to by these old executives who think, oh, she's just a woman, we can throw her to the side. And this obviously contributes to her stress. After this scene where she's been made to have dinner with his asshole, she dumps Greg. Christina and Christopher are walk in on her cutting up photographs of her and Greg. I guess this is the stand-in for her divorce with Philip Terry, who's not in the movie, I guess. I gotta look up. I'm surprised I wasn't able to find some thing on Philip Terry. I don't know what that is, but it's weird that there's no statement because he died in '93, so he wouldn't have been still alive when this movie was made. He has stated that he did leave Joan on bad terms. I think he did give up all his fathership rights and in exchange for Christopher's college fund, because Christopher is the would have actually been his adopted son, whereas Christina was adopted before they were married, briefly before they were married. But yeah, so yeah, they're ripping up photos. Christina has this kind of a bad scene where she's just holding up a fragment of Greg's image, and it's just like, if she doesn't like you, she'll make you disappear. And Yeah.
This was actually a really weird scene because you were talking about the breakup scene earlier. This was clearly made in the 80s or like the 40s when it happened. This Greg guy just grabs Joan Crawford and just starts ringing her, like just shaking her and shaking her and shaking her. And then she gets on the bed and is trying to seduce him for some weird reason. Like, no, just you just got abused, and she's just like, yeah, throwing yourself at him at this point, and it's just like have a little bit of dignity and just like you threw a
Drink on him, I think. Yeah, it's also been pointed out. It's also being occasionally pointed out that she does have an alcohol problem. Greg points this out. She is drinking a fair bit, which explains some of the later scenes in particular. She is having a. The next scene we get is her screaming at the kids for being too loud. Yeah, she ends up sending Christina to her room, and we get a game where she's talking to her dolls and being kind of like playing pretend and doing some stuff that's alluding to what's happening with her mother. And and Joan sees this, doesn't scream at her this time, just gets rid of the dolls while she's not there, which is a metaphor, I guess. It's yeah, no, it's not good. It's bad. It's bad. She meets with a character from MGM who this is portraying a scene where MGM is letting her go under the guise of mutually parting ways as friends, which is a really condescending way of doing this. She was not officially fired from MGM, but the movie implies that that was a bit of a public relations farce. And this causes her. He won't even walk her out to the car to make it seem like they're parting mutually because she refuses to. They refuse to give her good scripts, and that her given her a reputation of being box office poison, which shows this as being a point where she is on a downswing of her career. I shouldn't say totally because she's gonna come back up. She ought to shoot this guy. He's a dick. She comes back home, and in the middle of the night, she's having a tantrum in her rose garden where she just destroys a section of it. She has the maid, Carol Ann, who's just an amalgamation of several live-in housekeepers that's simplified for make-believe. She wakes up the kids, and they help tearing apart this section of rose garden. Joan says at one point, Christina, bring me the axe. And it's like, you don't think that she's going to use it on the kids, but she's drunk, and yeah.
I mean, nothing what she's doing right now is completely rational, so you kind of think, well, how far is she gonna push that? Like, just but watching her try and chop down that tree was hilarious because it took her like 6 swings to take out like a little like tiny. I don't even know what the like sapperling, I guess, would be the best term for it. Like, it's not even a full tree or anything.
Yeah, it's maybe 3 inches in diameter. It'd probably go down a lot sooner than what you'd expect.
They need to sharpen their axe.
Healthy tree though, I suppose, but yeah, healthy tree, all axe, it might take a couple swings. Maybe not. Maybe if you had like a strong guy doing it, it wouldn't take as many, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we cut to a scene of her having a rehearsal for Mildred Pierce with her maid, who she hits in the middle of rehearsing. It's clearly part of the acting, but yeah, we get a scene where where Joan's trying to get we get a scene where Joan's trying to get Christina to eat raw steak for lunch. So this is fucking rich people eating steak for lunch. but she's having her eat a rare steak, which apparently has more vitamins, and Christina is not having it. She doesn't eat it. She pulls the old "you're not leaving until you eat that," and she doesn't eat it that night. She goes to bed. She sets it in front of her for breakfast. Still refuses to eat it because it's old, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is over like a day, a 24-hour period where they're trying to make her eat the steak, and eventually Joan lets her trash it.
But this kid has got patience.
Yeah, I've heard of this happening in like more normal households. I mean, it's always a difficult situation, which I mean, this movie does show the gambit of abusive situations, stuff that is escalated from just normal kid misbehaving, and stuff that's completely irrational, and stuff that's built out of alcohol abuse. So we do get a gambit, and it's just showing a bunch of different things. The next bit is the scene of Joan winning her Oscar. She did not attend the ceremony for a reason. We had previously seen an image of her not winning an Oscar, or not even being nominated. So this sort of thing makes her really nervous. But actually, she's not attending based on the lie that she has pneumonia or something. I forget what they said. That she's sick, and but actually there's reporters outside, and she goes to address them in the middle of the night after she wins the Oscars. So she's clearly faking it. So yeah, that's a scene, and this is a scene of her winning the Oscar, showing an uptick in her career. So this isn't even isolating the idea that this is something that happened on parts where Joan Crawford was on the downswing of her career, which is the important thing I think the film is trying to get across is like this was not isolated to a bad time in Joan's life. This isn't a thing that that you got away from. It was consistent over all phases of her career, through all years, and the only thing that really caused it to subside was Christina growing into adulthood, and then they were allowed to have a more stable relationship because Christina couldn't be so much pushed around. And she did have evidently Joan did have a better relationship with the twins, but that's way later. And even then, she still has a big fight with Christina after the twins are adopted. So this isn't a matter of her calming down. She always kind of treats Christina like this. And it's just that as time goes on, it's becomes less practical for her to do the more harsh stuff.
Well, even on early on, you see more of a disdain towards Christina than you do towards Christopher. But Christopher received some of the brute end of it, but not all of it. And it seems to me that every single time something's happening in Hollywood, she takes it out on her kids.
Christopher is on Christina's side in this whole thing. He is also I mean, we'll get to the ending, but he is also on Christina's side of this. The little harness we're about in the upcoming scene, we see Christopher get out of bed and he's wearing like a harness. That is to keep him tied to the bed. That is not something we're told in the movie. We only just see the harness, but that is to keep him tied to the bed because it's supposed to keep him safe. So he was also abused, but this is just Christina's story, so we don't get too much of his thing. I don't know how much he.
See, that was confusing to me because I just assumed that was like an early way to stop like sleepwalking or like flailing or stuff like that, like just early. But once again, as you said,
Maybe, but I don't know. I can't say for sure.
it never explains it at all. It doesn't give any backstory to why he's tied into bed. So
Yeah, this is very much very tightly tied to Christina's version of
Hmm.
events, or line of events. The next scene we get is the infamous wire hangers scene, which is this is apparently a recurring thing that had been an instance of Joan's life, or Joan and Christina's relationship. She'd walk into the middle of the room to do what Christina calls a night raid, where she'd go check on stuff and she's all drunk, and she has she's sorting through Christina's walk-in closet and finds a wire hanger on one of the dresses, which we don't know where it came from. Joan was apparently very anti-wire hanger. It does bad stuff to the dress, I suppose. If you know anything about dresses, I don't. But I guess she's very anti-wire hanger, and she finds one in the room. Don't know where it came from. No way to know that. It's like the gun in Detroit. You never know where it came from, or even if it really existed. So yeah, she freaks out. She just starts screaming, "No more wire hangers!" She spanks Christina with the wire hanger. She hauls her into the bathroom, points out that it's not clean, and that she needs to clean it again, and that she's going to clean it. Eventually, Joan leaves, and Chris walks over. He volunteers to help. Christina tells him no, that if she catches him, she might get involved. This is a I'm understanding is a thing that's sometime present in abusive relationships of siblings protecting one another. So that's an example of this. Yeah, this is hard to watch. It's not funny. SNL, who made several sketches about this, or yeah, this is something that's been made fun of tons because people think it's funny. Apparently, I don't get it.
Once again, as I was saying earlier, you have to talk about the rational and the unrational. Because this, to me, is completely unrational. She comes into her room, finds wire hangers. The kids don't have anything to do with that. If you have a problem with it, you should probably bring it up with your house staff, not take it out on your children.
And ser- and even if we do somehow come to the conclusion that it's the child's fault, this is a gross overreaction to have in the middle of the night. Yeah, the performance is terrifying if you're not completely up your own ass. I don't know. The next scene we get is them, Christopher and Tina and Joan, doing a Christmas special over the radio, and then they're pretending to be happy. After that, we get a scene of Tina making Joan's new boyfriend a drink,
Yeah, this was a weird scene too.
which is apparently a habit of hers. Tina walks in on them a little bit after bringing Joan a glass of water.
I don't think that
Um,
was water.
Joan, could it have been a tall thing of vodka? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think it was a double vodka.
She poured it out of a pitcher.
But she was like, "I topped you up, mommy," and I'm like, "This is
Ugh.
so
I
like."
don't forget the film. I don't like how you said that. That was weird.
I'm
That
just
was,
reading the lines. but
that was
but
that was
I
I
think
didn't
that
like hearing that.
I
Weird.
think that it goes to show how Christina in herself is trying to find some middle ground with her mother, and this is the middle ground that she's kind of had to play.
The next scene is her getting sent to boarding school.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Christina's crying. We very much see the headmistress or whatever dismissing some things that Tina says, to the effect of, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't do anything again," and stuff like that, which is very it demonstrates something about child abuse. Is like, sometimes kids say things, and it's not always easy to tell if the kid's just saying something or if this is a very real sign of abuse. And that's always the difficult situation. Because, yeah, it's sometimes hard to pick apart what's normal and what's crossing a line, especially when you're not in the house with people.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get a time skip. We switch to the third actress that plays Christina. She's giving a monologue from Antigone. She is taking a weekend off from. She is going home for the weekend and having dinner with Joan. Joan orders her a rare steak, which is petty.
Mm-hmm.
Tina is showing a bit of a rebellious streak at this point. She's being a bit shitty with her mother, but I mean, look at the situation. It's understandable that she'd be a bit shitty with them. Joan points out that they're having some money issues and that she'll need to help out with some of the chores. They've had to let one of the maids go. Thank God it's the 50s now, at least, so she has washing machines and stuff. So they're not hand washing everything. She has lost her contract with Warner Brothers. A funny note, this film is done by Lionsgate, if I'm remembering correctly. Paramount. Oh, this is distributed by Paramount. And funny thing about her getting left off by WB, this film's distributed by Paramount, the only film studio that didn't employ Joan Crawford at some point.
Huh.
So that's a fun fact. We get a scene where Joan is passed out drunk, and Christina panics when she sees this. Joan's alcoholism is clearly getting a bit worse. She is passed out in a pile of shoes, which she bought despite the financial issues. So the next bit we get is her going back to school, and she meets a boy. That ends with her making out with him in a stable. Turns out it's one of her friend's crushes, so she tells, and that gets her into trouble. Joan comes into the school and has a conversation with the prof. She's honestly more upset with the headmistress, because the headmistress is just gonna put her on probation, because, I mean, that's what these religious schools do. They want to put you on probation for stuff that's none of their fucking business. But Joan pulls her out of school because they shouldn't have got her into. She shouldn't have had the opportunity in the first place. Yeah, so she gets pulled out of school. This is happening before Joan has to meet up with a reporter at her home. She's introducing herself. She notices that Christina's with her, and she's like, "Oh, Christina, I haven't seen you since you were 4 years old." And Christina says, "Oh yeah, nice to see you again." And Joan makes some crack about her getting expelled, and Christina's just like, "That's a lie." And he's like, "That's not true." And she's contradicting Joan in front of the reporter, and so she pulls Christina aside, and they have an argument, which ends in physical violence. When Christina questions why she adopted her, and whether or not she was just being adopted as a whole publicity scheme. It ends with them getting into a fight and Joan choking out Christina. The reporter and one of the maids pulls Joan off her. After this, she is sent to live in not a coven. No, I'm thinking covens are witches. Convent of nuns.
Yeah.
I didn't realize those words were so close together.
Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm gonna send you home with this coven of nuns. Oh, you mean convent?
This is where you kind of really start to understand why the lady who plays adult Christina definitely got nominated for a Golden Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actress, because this scene is really just, it's overacted on Fey Dunaway's part, and then underacted on this, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, she's doing a bit of an impression of Fey Dunaway's performance is what I find, which I mean, if you think one's bad, you're gonna think the other's bad, and I don't think her performance is as good as Dunaway's. So yeah, but it's just how that worked out. Um, I think that's more of a flaw with the movie. Perhaps if they had reined Faye in a bit more, they could have gotten a more realist, a more nuanced. Not no, I keep saying words, but I'm not what I mean because it's nuanced because she's kind of getting a impression of Dunaway's character, which I think is good, if not well executed. So the nuns make a crack about her teaching her respect, and they're gonna teach her the error of his ways. Like, fuck you, fuck these nuns, these religious institutions. I can never get behind them. They're just so they just straight up presume that this is all Christina's fault. And by the time she leaves, you get the impression that they've kind of gone the other half of the story, but they don't fucking say anything to the fucking government or anything like that. There's no
Also, this situation also seems to be exasperated by Joan's character because she warns the nuns preemptively, and they're like, yeah, your mother told us you were acting out, so we're going to take away all your privileges. You're not going to be allowed to leave the property. You're not allowed to take phone calls in or out. You're not. So, like, the school might be a little better to its students, but it's not going to be any better to Christina.
they'll very much take the parents' word for it. Uh, you're very much getting a situation like, oh, you need to take this child. I am at my wit's end. She is just so misbehaving and rebellious. She needs to be taught her place, and that's the position in which they've started at. Which, I mean, how you prevent this in real life, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but yeah, this is a bad instance. In the meantime, while she's at the convent, Joan marries her final husband, Alfred Steele, who's a Pepsi executive. And this was real. She was in Pepsi commercials and everything. Tina doesn't attend a wedding. Chris, I assume, doesn't. Christopher's also at military school during this. From real life I know from real life. It's not stated in the movie, but he attended military school, so he attended a very different version of the same issues. I got the impression of. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
gendered into a different thing. You send girls to the nuns, and you send men to the army, boys to the army. I'm sorry. So yeah, we've gotten another time skip. It's implied that she's an adult now. They're getting their last scene at the at Crawford's estate, which she is selling to go live with Alfred in New York. She is going to start acting to take after her mother. Joan is insistent about never giving her a cent, and she is not tempted to give her any. Christina asks if she can borrow some money for rent, and Joan refuses. Um, Alfred gives her a little bit of money behind Joan's back. We cut back to Alfred is renovating a big Fifth Avenue apartment in New York. It is very expensive, and he has to take out a bunch of money to do it from the company, which wouldn't necessarily be a big deal, but he dies like 3 years into the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And the executives, shitbags that they are, try to leave her with the debt and try to shove her out of the company so they can take her shares. She manages to shout her way down from that because she gives. This is a worst part of her performance, where she's like, "Don't fuck with me, boys," and it's this part's pretty badly acted. I'll give the critics that, but she manages to get the executives to back off from throwing her to the fucking wolves. because fuck them. She goes to visit Tina. She gives her some pearls from the place. She is Christina mentions that she's getting an audition for a sitcom, for a soap opera called The Secret Storm, which she gets, and Joan makes an effort to watch the show every day. She was on it for I think one season in real life. Early, like halfway into her brief run, Christina gets a ovarian tumor. It's not serious. She lives through this. She just needs surgery. It's like benign. So Joan, since she's in the same city, they're both in New York. Joan turns up at Christina's hospital and calls her boss to let her know what the deal is. The boss seems really apprehensive, like really skittish about like, oh, how long she's gonna be. Oh, that's bad that she's gonna be gone for a long time. So in order to help save her Christina's job, which I think this is very close to being the moment of Joan being a good mother. It's close. It's not quite there. Because I think Joan would know that, especially at this point of Christina's career, where she's a very new actress, and that she needs to uh, having to miss several weeks of work would probably be very bad for her, and that Hollywood would kind of, or I suppose not Hollywood, but the film industry would kind of spit her out if she lost if she was out of the script too long. So Joan agrees to cover for Christina on Secret Storm, where Christina Crawford plays a 28-year-old housewife. Joan Crawford is in her 60s. This is real, by the way. This is a real thing. This was on TV and everything. They kind of shied away from her in the show a bit because she was I mean, we get a scene of some of like a recreation of a performance, and Joan is clearly somewhat intoxicated on set and does a very bad performance. This in real life caused a fair bit of animosity between the two because Christina felt she did a very bad job. She did finish out her run, but she did only last one season on the show, or maybe 2 years. I can't tell for sure. Tina is then the next scene accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Golden Globes, the Cecil B. Mill Award, to be exact. This place takes in 1970. Christina accepts the award for her, and Joan cries as she watches from a very plain bed in a very basic apartment. The next scene we cut to is it's actually 7 years later in 1977 when Joan finally passes away. She has a final hug with Carolyn, who was the maid. Carolyn points out that she loved her, that Joan loved her, and Christina says, "I have to believe that's true," which I think is a very sobering statement about these abusive relationships. Is that it's kind of a corruption to something that's supposed to be very unconditional love. It's what makes these sort of child abuse stories so heart-wrenching. The next scene we get is her and Christopher being pulled into a room to do a will reading. Okay. I had mentioned something about a scene in this movie that was bullshit, and this is it. So the scene goes, and she says, "Okay, you and Christopher and Christina are being left out of the will, and they are receiving nothing for reasons that are known to them," which is the exact words of the will. The movie makes it seems like that's coming out of nowhere and that she's just being spiteful, or maybe that this is an extension of the only getting to keep so many presents thing from earlier in the movie. That's most likely not the case. Joan Crawford revised her will in 1976 in response to the news that Christina was beginning work on the Mommie Dearest book. They delayed publishing of it till 2 years after Joan Crawford died to eschew rumors that this was happening in response to Christina getting cut out of the will. But yeah, she was cut out of the will because Joan had found out about the book and she was very upset. That obviously wouldn't overrule the abuse that Joan allegedly put onto Christina, but yeah, this scene is bullshit. They were cut out of the will because she was writing the book. Not saying that she shouldn't have wrote the book, but that is what was happening. The movie closes with Christopher saying, "Well, I guess she always gets the last word." And Christina looks at the camera and is just like, "Does she? Will she?" And yeah, that's the end of the movie. So yeah, that kind of ruined a bit of the ending for me because now I know it's bullshit in real life. But
I also think that something that one of the bigger themes in the movie, I think you might not have touched on there, was the fact that Joan Crawford started from relative poorness, poverty, and grew her way into stardom. And her not leaving anything in the will might be a play on that, or not giving her rent money when she needs rent money is probably because she wants her to make it herself. But even at that, yeah, it seems tad bit spiteful. I didn't come to the realization that she had already started writing the book by the time that the will came across. So I just assumed it was because of that she cut him out of the will.
yeah, it was an easy lie for them to make,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a lie, and we just got to point that out because it's um for the sake of realism. I wouldn't take this from any film, but I just got to point it out to be consistent. But yeah, though the movie did make a statement. I don't know that she was going to be left a lot of money in the pre 1976 will, but it was definitely changed to nothing. The other two children were left some trust funds.
Oh,
The twins, I mean.
well, I
Yeah.
mean, when
So that does,
you
yeah.
work at board of directors at Pepsi, I'm assuming you're probably raking in a decent amount of cash, but
Yeah.
that could
I
be
don't know
wrong.
how long she kept that, but yeah, she was excluded, and the twins did get some money. It was specifically Christopher and Christina, which were fully cut out.
Wonder what, yeah, Christopher did. So we never get that.
Well, he was supportive of the book, I think, and he was also he was also abused to a point, especially you don't see it too much in the movie, but it is part of the allegations. So yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I think it's fairly good. What are you giving it, Cody?
Uh, I don't know. I guess I'd probably give it somewhere around a 4 out of 10. I can see why the acting is declared as over the top, but some of the scenes are hard to watch in itself. But narrative ways, I'd also like to touch on, because they didn't do a very good job of portraying any form of timeline in this movie, and that to me kind of took away from the movie watching experience as a whole. Dunway's performance in it, though, although be it over the top a lot of the times, it captured some of the. What I was gonna say is Christina, or Joan Ann Crawford, was reportedly to have mental health problems, bipolar disorder, and OCD tendencies was one of the couple of them, and it kind of shows that, but it also doesn't show like the ups and downs of bipolar disorder. It's kind of just really focuses on the downs of bipolar disorder, where she's like being a lunatic and acting crazy and stuff like that. She was a rich woman in Hollywood at that time. I mean, the downs must have been really shitty, but the ups could have been really, really good. But I could be wrong. I don't know the situation, and I'm not one to speculate on stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with a solid 4 out of 10. You might be able to talk me down to like a 2 out of 10, but yeah, 4 is a pretty decent. And that's being generous.
I've talked myself down to a 6.
Oh?
Yeah, I've talked myself down to a 6. I was doing it a bit higher at points during my research, but there's a lot. That ending really sours it for me a bit. Because it is a bit deceptive, but I think there is a lot good. Yeah, I think I'll just give it a 7. I think it is portraying a lot of stuff. It is kind of limited by its very limited viewpoint. It's very much Christina's point of view. We do see a bit of Joan's stuff, mostly to take pot shots at Hollywood, which, hey, I'm for. Yeah, I'm giving it a 7. I think it's the performance. Dunaway's performance is effective, if maybe a little bit over the top, but I think it's gotten a very overblown reputation as being this very terrible thing. But yeah, I think that's our movie. Like I said at the beginning, we're doing Tora for the next review, which is going to start production immediately after this is done. I can't speak to when it's going to be out. It'll be out when it's out. You can follow us on Twitter at KCCCinemaPod. Follow us on Facebook. Island Cody's called CinemaCast. Like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us those 5-star reviews. Circulate the links. I'll see you guys as soon as I can. Hopefully it's not too long.
Wow.